to the Brain Profits Podcast. Are you ready for the show? We are, so let's go. Welcome back to another episode of the Brain Profits. I'm Doug Mapp, cognitive development professional and entrepreneur, and I'm here with my partners. Philippe, what's good?
What's going on? I'm Dr. Philippe Duyon. I'm a board-certified neurologist. I am the author of the book Neuroplasticity, Your Brain's Superpower, and the ebook Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. I'm also the creator of the online course Take Charge of Your Brain. And we've got with us Mrs. Stacy Busby.
Good morning. Good morning. Hey, Stacy Busby, executive coach. I get to mess with the thinking of some of the smartest people I know to help them create what others think is impossible. And speaking of folks who like to create impossible things that others have held back on, we've got Aldwin back with us. Dr. Soumare. Did I say that correctly?
Perfect.
Yeah.
I love it.
Back.
Oh, thank you. I love to be back. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, so we want to jump into entrepreneurship. We're all entrepreneurs here. We all work with organizations, and you are an aspiring, or are you already an entrepreneur making moves already?
I'm making moves already.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Tell us about the business.
All right. So currently, I'm not on a large scale entrepreneurial wave, but I'm building toward that. Currently, I just purchased a home in Atlanta, Georgia, Norcross, Georgia, to be specific, last year. And I'm leveraging this property in order to do short-term and long-term rentals. So I have two, and it's great because it actually allows me also to inspire and encourage pre-meds. I have two pre-meds that are living with me currently. And I always have the opportunity to chat about MCAT, chat about, medical school, my experiences, but also I do also short-term rental with Airbnb as well in one of the rooms. So I'm trying to, see how things work out. I'm getting a third person to live in here. And then my next move actually is to use something called a physician loan. So for those that don't know, anybody that graduates medical school, again, leveraging, has opportunity to do something called a physician loan, where you can get anywhere from 0 to 5% down. You could put down to finance for a house. And so that's my next move in New York. My mom and I have kind of planned on her getting a 2-bed condo, and she's gonna live in one of the rooms and then manage the Airbnb in the second room as well. And then also, I also get in dip and dabble in the stock market. One of the most passive ways that I do that is this app called Acorns, which I really love because I don't even have to second guess anything. Anytime that I get, for instance, a milk carton for $2.50, it rounds up to $3, and 50 cents goes up into my actual account. And so I love the passivity of that, and allowing me to not really think about it so much, and now as the market, changes, it's just the flexibility. That's a beautiful thing. And so those are some of the things that I do have planned. And something else that I also have planned is the car rental, using Toro, which I've used personally. I'm currently in the process of finalizing a new car and starting my fleet of cars as well. So it's going to be a Nissan Altima 2020. And then you guys know Atlanta is one of the busiest places. Atlanta is actually, it actually skyrocketed up back to number one. It removed Guangzhou, China's airport from number one when they're number two. And now we're number one busiest airport in the whole entire world. Wow. And so people are constantly coming down, and that's an opportunity that I definitely want to capitalize on.
No, you should. You're right. I mean, I've lived in this Southeast region for a long time now. Mm-hmm. And I went to Ponce Market like 2 weeks ago. And I remember when that wasn't there. So it's kind of funny to see it and hang out there. It's a beautiful spot. Beautiful. Really impressed by what they've done and what people are doing down there in Atlanta to build it up and to keep it kind of fresh, and even keep it where it was busy, but not crazy busy. Like even getting in and out was not that bad of a deal. So cool spot. Smart for you to try to leverage what the city is doing to make money with that. So all right, so that's the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey. Where else are you kind of seeing you go later on? Because I know that you have aspirations of a practice of some sort, right?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I definitely want to own my own neurology clinic and practice. And some of the ideas I really have for that is really looking at different spaces of medicine to affect and treat my patients. So for instance, I'm currently researching different medical and alternative options for therapy, such as utilizing. I'm drawing a blank right now. Sorry.
It's okay.
Utilizing things such as like spas, utilizing massage therapy, behavioral therapy, utilizing tea as well as plants. Tea,
go back. Tea
like
like
teas.
TEA.
Yeah, like TEA, like tea.
You drink, yeah.
Nature.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast and they talked about nature being one of the most important things that you could prescribe for your patients. Because think about it, from human civilization, from the perspective of humanity, we spent most of our time outdoor. And to expect an individual to be in a confined space and be healthy all the time when it's going apropos to our natural state, it's just ludicrousy. And so what I want to do is actually in my patient clinics have, plants in there, have like, the bird noises, like things like that. Something that's a little bit different to make people feel comfortable.
Make me think when you talk about it that way, I'm starting to think of Aquatica. No, not Aquatica. Discovery Cove. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I've not.
All right. So when you get a chance to take a break, go down to Orlando, buy a ticket to go to Discovery Cove. You'll thank me. They hit me back.
All right. I missed it because I was just in Orlando for a conference too 2 weeks ago.
Go back. Well, you got to schedule it. Well, you got to schedule it before you go because they limit the amount of people that can show up. So
all right, yeah, I'll check that out.
You need to get a sponsorship by SeaWorld, by the way. Anyways, but all right, so let's talk about some of my passions when you talk about building a business.
Hold on for a second before we move on. So I think I was really impressed by the fact that you are dipping into that whole Airbnb space. You mentioned that you have, I guess you got a house, right, that you essentially own, where you're able to share that space and break that space up. My question was, in our last episode, we talked a little bit about med school debt.
Yep.
And you mentioned how much in debt you are in terms of loans.
Right.
How were you able then to now get a loan in order to own a home and do the kind of work that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I think, honestly, I really want to thank my mom for I actually used her as a co-signer in this loan, and also as well as some of the ventures that I did in the past. I've saved up money from party promoting, and as well as, prior to medical school, I did extensively work and I saved that on the side. And again, as I mentioned, I dipped and dabbled in the stock market for the last several years. And that allowed me to build capital in order to purchase this first home without using the physician loan. So obviously, you guys know, you have to put anywhere from 10 to 20% down. And so that helped me with that in terms of the debt. And obviously, they calculate the debt to income ratio, and that could be a negative. But not all debt is bad debt. Again, your primary focus should be to invest in yourself. And again, I don't regret that, being in that position, the opportunity. And I do appreciate my mom for helping me out and assisting me with purchasing this home.
I mean, that's awesome. And you're right. Not all debt is bad debt. Yeah. Although a lot of business people will tell you, school debt is the worst debt.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But again, I got a plan for it. So that's why I don't
Which is why he's such a strong entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He's not going to wait on medicine paying off his debts. He's going to create his life outside of somebody else's paycheck to him.
Yeah. What I like about him is he's a hustler. He has a natural ability to hustle in the background. So you talk about party promoting. You didn't talk about that before, but that got you to a particular place where you wanted to go. So then you start moving on to something else. But all right. So what I was going to move into was, how do you, in building an organization and kind of thinking through that process, is there any, have you been looking at yet any of, or do you have any mentors that that you follow to say, okay, this is where I want to emulate and building a business and to that way, I guess, the idea.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have Dr. Dion, doing his thing. I had the opportunity prior to interviewing for my podcast to talk to him about his business ventures and him, no cap. That's real reality. Yeah. I can show you on my phone right now, the phone log. I know if you look behind him, you probably can't tell because he's trying to do that
he's got that sultry look with the black and white. He forgot to turn off the filter, where he got his book in the background, so you could.
Yep.
So, you know,
Yeah, I've got my book in like 4 places on this shelf. It's like all over the shelf as a reminder.
Like,
as a reminder.
Who has a
of what
bookshelf
is
with just his
possible.
books?
Pretty much.
I love it. Great book, by the way. Make sure y'all tune into Neuroplasticity. His book.
You
know,
See,
learned a lot.
We need more guests like Aldwin.
Oh, funny. All right. So I derailed your answer. So you're talking about your mentors, the people you look at to help you kind of formulate what your business is going to look like, how you're going to kind of operate.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously Dr. Dion with his Brain Fit app, and obviously his book, and then, you know, him also having online brain modules for those, you know, suffering from different neurologic diseases. Another mentor of mine, her name is Dr. Joy Jones, who she's recently opened up a practice here in Georgia called Healthy Women's Georgia. She's actually having her grand opening on Sunday, and also is involved in media, been on CNN, HLN, and one of my avid supporters. And anytime I post, I already know she's going to say something under my posts and comments. So I really appreciate and love her. And also, when we talk about business, I served as the National Osteopathic Committee Chair on in SMA, which is, again, the Student National Medical Association. And we, being a nonprofit organization, must work as a business, right? We must, you know, file our taxes. We must, you know, ensure that all our business is accurately and correctly produced at the end of the day. And so being part of that organization and being part of the board of directors to see how things are managed, right? Looking at the hierarchy of the structure, looking at how do we create and cultivate for an organization that is based on medical students' profit and allow us to continue to evolve. And I think that organization has, you know, superbly taught me the value of diligence, the value of accuracy. And even in my role, I advocate for osteopathic medical students. And for those that don't know, the doctor of osteopathic profession is similar to MDs, but we also learn how to utilize our hands to treat and manipulate patients that suffer from musculoskeletal dysfunction. So, for instance, issues with lower leg edema, which is fluid buildup due to heart failure, constipation. We treat hiccups. We treat trigeminal neuralgia, temporomandibular joint dysfunction. We also can treat, in some instances, stroke by, you know, alleviating a lot of the muscle and tissues and stuff like that. So anyway, that was a tangent. But bringing it back to the business side of things, the advocacy work and also being engaged in that organization is really has been a bedlam of success in regards to business and seeing how things work behind the scenes.
So let's talk. To me, I like to look at, like, when you're building an organization, you think about culture. What type of culture are you looking for to build and bring to the workforce when you started?
You know, like, and that's a great question. Anytime that I actually enter a business, the questions I ask are like, what are the products and values that are different from any other competitor? Yeah. And I think for me, like for me, you know, for instance, I come into a business and I look at the quality in terms of the employees. How do they interact? Are they positive? Like, are they welcoming? And so many businesses, you go in there and everybody's like just moping around, minding their business, especially in New York City. You know, Dr. Dion, you know how they do up there. You know,
that influenced actually my decisions in healthcare.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And honestly, you know, for me, like being able to create a culture where people are happy to come to work, and that could be quite challenging. But if you invoke happiness into your workers, then you invoke happiness into the people that come and have an expectation and a standard to buy whatever product or whatever you are servicing toward them. And so what I see for me in the future in building my brand and building my organization is positivity, optimism, building a culture where everyone's a leader and everyone, for me, being a business owner, for instance, if I own, because I want to own a lounge, a lounge in one day. For me, I will have no problem if someone, you know, spills a glass and I come and clean it, right? It's what the leader inspires and encourages others to do. So me as a leader, I shouldn't feel as if I'm entitled to not do those kind of things, right? As a leader, you should be entitled to empower the people that you are leading, right? And set the example and the precedent to say, hey, I'm just like you. I'm not any better or worse than anybody here. We have a mission. Our mission is to actually capitalize and get this bread, get this money, you know, cream,
That's
baby,
right.
you know?
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So, and I think that positivity is so incredibly crucial. Like I said, that influenced my decisions in medicine. And when I was finishing my fellowship, I was supposed to stay on at Cornell as a professor.
Wow.
And every morning when you would walk into this major medical institution, first of all, you'd walk in and the main entrance is kind of dark and dreary. And at 7 o'clock in the morning, somebody was pissed off and cursing you out. I thought to myself, is this going to be my life?
Yeah.
And so, even though I had that contract signed to stay on, I ended up not and pursuing something completely different, because you walked into the office and it was bright. It was great views of New York City. People just seemed happier, right? And so having that level of positivity and optimism as pillars in the culture of your business, I think is crucial.
I wonder if anybody studied it, the happyology versus the productivity, to see why organizations, some organizations tend to lean heavily towards productivity versus happyology. I'd like to. I wonder if anybody's done that. Maybe something we may have to try to do one day. But either way, what do you think about? So it seems that there is when you start looking at people, right? Companies, that the bigger they get, they start considering people talent. I don't know if you've heard that or heard that. What do you think about considering people talent versus looking at the talent that the person possesses?
That's a good question. I mean, for me, in my opinion, I think that it's, when we talk about talent, I think that we innately all have a talent. We all have the ability to exceed and excel at our specific things, whether it's public speaking or it's connecting with people or even playing the piano. And I think that to reference someone as talent is, in my opinion, dehumanizing them in a way and not looking at them as an individual, as this person's name is Anthony, or this person's name is Douglas or Dr. Duyon, and creating that culture where we respect and accept the individuality in that person. Saying that person is talent for me is like putting a silhouette on them, like putting like a mask on them. But then when you say this person has a talent, you're naming them and you're putting a framework around what they can inspire and what they can accomplish and manifest within the organization. So I feel like it's better to say this person has this talent rather than calling them specifically a talent. But I hear that all the time, but that's my personal opinion.
No, you're 100%, I think, spot on with it. I think so the question is, that I always thought about it, is it purposefully dehumanizing? Because there's departments that are considered like a talent acquisition department, right? So how do you acquire a talent? The talent as a company. I don't know how they do that, but it is something that people tend to have departments that's their job, that's the role, that's what we've created. We're hoping, at least my job is to elevate the point that no, you actually have to continue to develop and cultivate the talent in people, because sometimes if you can help it evolve, it may do something that you never thought that could happen, especially for your organization, especially if it can align with the culture that you're building, right? If you understand the strategic vision that that company is about. And so it's 100%. About building those things.
I just did a couple of radio spots, and before I sat down to shoot them, they were like, "Oh, here's the talent," and I'm like, "Who the hell are they talking about?"
There you go.
Right. I was like, "Here's the talent. There you go. You're gonna have to coach me through this." So yeah.
So you understand. You were now a thing, a commodity.
I know. I was. It's interesting, right? Because one of the things that I always say is words are the verbal embodiment of power, right? So the words that we speak have a tremendous influence on everything. And you're right. When you call somebody a talent, you do take away a bit of who they are. You do dehumanize them. And if we start referring to people as talents, well, there's no limit into how long a talent can work, right? There's no limit into how much you can just take away from that talent. And you don't have to worry about that talent, limiting their work to 40 hours a week. Be like, no, you're the talent. You need to produce for 100 hours this week.
And all the way until the point where that talent becomes irrelevant. Because talent can,
Well,
right?
talent
Because
gets replaced.
when you start doing that, you can replace talent. It seems to like you don't care about what that person was, and they're not involved in like what happens next.
Yep.
You know, because a lot of people,
let alone the limiting capacity of that individual, because it would be easy. It's easy for us as humans to attach to that as, oh, this is my identity. This is who I am. I am that talent. And at some point, there's a ceiling for that. And then there's a whole detaching from that must happen before you get to keep thinking about your full limitless capacity. And what a travesty, because that human that has been able to reach that high level talent with their skill likely has that capacity in other avenues too that could help a company pivot and be flexible in times like we've had since 2019.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, and I think I totally agree with that with you. So going back to people and building an organization, you got to look at the workforce, right? So when you look at the workforce, now, so everything's based off of, to me, numbers to some degree, right? So if you look at the workforce is composed of people who have been educated in this system. And when we look at this system, most people are not educated at the level that we'd like. At least they're passing certain grades, but they're not accomplishing the things that we would think they would accomplish in order to pass grades, right? So in essence, when you look at like people who are graduating high school, 64% of them can't read at grade level graduating. And when you look at mathematics, 73% of them aren't passing the mathematics exam or test at grade level leaving high school. So when you look at those numbers and looking at the workforce, you could almost say that the workforce is going to be filled with a lot of people who may be underperforming, right? And if you're looking at that, you may tend to see, I mean, to some degree, why people are trying to find particular talent inside of people to try to mesh them together to make it work. But when you do that, sometimes you're starting to see what you see at times in the workforce is beef, or or traditionally, as we would call it, oppositional behavioral issues between coworkers, right? So the more issues that you could have cognitively, we can probably see that when you start to look at like how people are processing information at those in the proficient ways, and when it comes to education in school. But the workforce is filled with a lot of those people. So how do you think we should address, or how could you as an employer, potential employer, right, help address those issues?
Hold on, before Aldwin, you answer, when Aldwin was talking about the importance of being exposed to nature, the thing that came to my mind was our current school system, right? Where we put all these kids in a classroom and expect that they're just going to sit there and absorb information all day long. And we know that does not work, right? So when we talk about these stats, 64% of high school seniors don't read on grade level. Like, well, our school systems don't work, right? Because they don't tap into our inherent nature, right? They put us in these environments that go against who we are as individuals. And so now when you apply this to work, right? Work does the same exact thing. We're not supposed to be sitting down for 8 hours a day in some cubicle trying to be productive, right? If you look at animals that are caged, what do they start doing? They start pacing back and forth, which is a sign of mental health issues. Human beings do the same damn thing at work. We pace back and forth physically, we probably do it emotionally and mentally. The way that we have set up our society completely goes against our norms. Like if I was creating a society, I would not create a society where people need a stimulant to wake up in the morning, right? Then they need to be stuck in these jobs all day long where they're trying to be productive. And then at night, because they've been so stressed out, they need something that helps them relax, like, like alcohol or something, right? Like this completely goes against human nature, the society that we have created. We are the only animals on this planet that are asked to be something different from who we are in our nature. It does not work well. And so we see the product of that every single day and then want to be like, 64% of college freshmen don't read on grade level. Okay, but the system is the problem.
Right. Speaking to that too, there was a study that came out in 2019 that showed that interns, which is your first year of residency after medical school, spend 90% of their time in front of a computer. And we come into medicine thinking, oh, you're going to see patients, you're going to establish rapport and connections with them. But how do you do that when you're behind a computer? How do you do that when you're creating a framework where relationships aren't established? You're trying to create a relationship with a computer that doesn't respond back to you. You're trying to create, this standard for the hospital, create revenue, rather than developing your own, sense of self and your sense of awareness within the hospital framework. So it is like very discouraging to see that. And that's something that I hope and aspire to change.
All right. So as you're changing it, are you planning to be, if you're planning on being a major employer, or major employer being somebody who's hiring more than 10 people, employees, right? What would you do in order to make sure that can change? Because one thing you're not going to, well, in the short term, one thing that probably is not going to happen is we're going to be able to change the system. So you're going to have to deal with what the system is creating, right? So how are you going to help frame or, kind of reconstruct that individual as they are working for you?
I think things like creating a hospitable environment, things like also, for instance, like organizations do retreats where people can discuss ideas and connect and learn about someone outside of the framework of just working. For me, also, I think another thing that I want to really target is really, again, when we talk about the talent in an individual, learning to individualize respect and acceptance of who they are, and elevating them with their strengths and learning about their strengths and how that could fit into the organizational structure and what we're trying to accomplish. So, for instance, if you know that you have an employee that's really, again, optimistic, really happy, like feeding and affirming them, right? And allowing them to be comfortable in their strengths, and seeing patients, the first person they see when they come into the door is that person that is smiling, and gifting them with that positive presence. Or if you have someone that could, organize tasks really well, right? Feeding and affirming them in that, and putting them in that position where if you have all these files, all these patients, and all of these tasks that need to be done, allowing them to flourish in that space. And again, telling them, hey, I'm proud of you. Continue the good work. Because I think even in medicine, there are rare occasions where we actually celebrate people. Like, it is expected for you to be 100% all the time, but that is not physically possible. Just like Dr. Dion said, like, for us to have the expectance in an environment that does not cultivate and culture us to be unique and be in a position where we're at our natural self, it is just a travesty. We can't have that expectation. But for me, being able to rely on that person and that individualized aspect of them is so important and critical to empowering them, and then empowering the organization to always do better and keep a standard of excellence.
Right. As long as they make sure that the bottom line is good.
That's true. Yeah, we need that bread. You know what it is.
You spoke to a whole other episode of how our society uses that as a dichotomy, that it's either the bottom line or it is what is being described here. And Aldwin, I'll invite you to consider as a leader how you'll exemplify all of this, because you can build it. And then the nonverbal is to be great, to be the leader is to be seen as perfect and knowing it all. And there's great power in maximizing your talent that you've chosen, the people you've chosen, by showing that we're going to innovate because we're going to make mistakes. We're going to innovate because we're going to talk about the mistakes and how we're learning from them. And you will be the one that is the first to out yourself, not just say, let's do it, it's okay, but you'll be outing yourself to others as well.
Yeah. So I want you to say, as we wrap up this last show, and we're going to have you on for a third show later, just so you know.
But, I appreciate that.
But I want to wrap up with you. What's your grand takeaway so far on this journey of wanting to become an entrepreneur? What's the grand takeaway?
I think don't, just like I took away from medical school, don't be afraid of failure. Failure actually teaches us so much about ourselves. And the conviction to be committed to what you believe in is the most powerful thing. And no one can innately take that away from you. It is something that is beautiful, something that is powerful to have an idea and work toward it. And that idea may not be manifested today, but each and every day you execute small goals. So for instance, if you want to open a practice, start reading books that talk about business, right? Or start mentoring with people in the business community like yourselves. If you want to learn about the brain, start checking out the Brain Profits podcast. You know what you guys talk about.
Yeah, like that plug.
But at the end of the day, having the exposure and not being afraid to put yourselves in uncomfortable positions. And that's what I always try to do, honestly. When I go, honestly, I'll admit it. Like I go out to lounges and yesterday I went out and I brought my laptop and I was working on questions for my podcast, and people are coming up to me asking, what are you doing? What's your job? You know, I'm putting myself in places where I'm naturally networking with people and I don't even have to second guess it. And I love that. Being in positions where you do different things, people will recognize that, and that will open doors and opportunities to do other things. So,
all right, that's dope. Not to take away from what you just said, but for Stacey and Philippe, tell them what a lounge is, because I'm sure they're thinking of the old yesteryear's version of lounge.
Lounges are spots where it's a lot of bright lights and it's a lot of loud music and it's a lot of people dancing, a lot of people, you know, having drinks. There's TV screens with basketball and football games going on, people coming in and out, meeting each other, talking if they can, if it's not too loud. But for me, that's just my innate natural environment. And people in medical school always question, how do you go out and study like in a lounge? It's like, that's just me. My brain works differently. Again, individuality. Appreciate the genuine aspect of you. That is what is going to take you to the level of excellence that you expect and anticipate at the end of the day. And there's nothing wrong with that.
All right, well, I got
Stacey, this last part of the conversation reminds me that Doug has the same level of humor as my 9-year-old. Because my 9-year-old recently said something to the effect of like, hey, Papi, when you were crossing the street, how would you avoid the dinosaurs? Yeah.
Yo,
and so you got me good. You're like, oh, that's funny.
No, I gotta mess with them sometimes because they like they're a little bit older. Philippe is a single guy but doesn't want to use apps. He wants to do it the old-fashioned way. So that's why I gotta bust him up sometimes.
Do what you do, you know. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to actually answer that, but he asked me.
Listen,
I was like, should I not answer?
It's okay to do
it. Back in the day when I grew up, if you wanted a date, you had to be able to talk to the person. I don't believe in this swipe right, swipe left, like, you know, this another form of communication.
You gotta learn another version of communication, form of communication. You'll be all right. Anyways, well, hey, tell the people where they can find you, where they can look for their future employer.
Oh yeah, definitely. So check me out on Instagram, Bronx Neuro _DO. Podcast page is Melanin White Coats, MELANIN White Coats on Facebook, and as well as on Instagram, and as well as on my Twitter handle is enriching.bx. And also shout out to SNMA. We have our page, SNMA _official. Make sure you check us out. We are, again, the largest minority medical student organization in the country, over 6,500 people, and we're growing. We got 20K followers almost on there, and we continue to cultivate and cherish the legacy of being medical students and future physicians that want to maintain clinical competence and also excellence within the communities that we want to change.
All right, man. Well, dope. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate having you grace our airways.
Thank you. I'm graced by you and everything that you all do. I love the chemistry. I love this podcast and how you represent our community and talk about topics that are very, very needed. And the way you execute it is beautifully done. So you guys are inspiring focus for me as I move forward in the media and podcasting world. So continue the great things you do.
We trying. We're out here.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah. So thank you guys. This is another episode in season 2 of the Brain Profits. Until next time, we're out.
Thanks for shining your light, Aldwin.
Oh, thank you.
This is awesome. So thank you.
Yeah.